This is the weekly Roundup on EAC News Channel. Your look back at the past week in the Kingdom of Wonder. A very good evening to you. My name is Dekanin, and we will start on Monday. Cambodia welcomes the latest scheduled date for the ASEAN-US Summit, which is now to be held on the 12th to 13th of May 2022. This is the second special summit to be held since 2016 and the first face-to-face meeting between all ASEAN and US leaders since 2017. EAC News reporter Dashana Gochin has more details.
According to a press statement released on 16th April by the ASEAN Chair, Cambodia welcomes the upcoming ASEAN-US Summit in May, emphasizing that this meeting will reaffirm the joint commitment to maintain ASEAN centrality and unity through existing ASEAN-led mechanisms, as well as to foster mutual trust and confidence in maintaining peace, stability, and prosperity in the region. The two-day meeting will bring together ASEAN leaders and President Joe Biden to discuss the ways and means to enhance cooperation in a wide range of areas, including response to COVID-19 and global health security, climate change, sustainable development, maritime cooperation, human capital development, education and people-to-people contacts, as well as connectivity and economic engagement. ASEAN and U.S. leaders will also exchange views on regional and international issues of common interest and concern. The press release further states, during this historic meeting, the leaders of ASEAN and the United States will chart the future direction of ASEAN-US relations and seek to further enhance strategic partnership for the mutual benefits of the peoples of ASEAN and the United States. On 14th January 2022, United States President Joe Biden sent an invitation to Prime Minister Hun Sen to attend the ASEAN-US Summit and stated that he looks forward to welcoming him to Washington in the near future. ASEAN-US Dialogue Partnership is currently 45 years old. The ASEAN-US Summit was originally scheduled to take place at the end of March, but was postponed due to busy and conflicting schedules between ASEAN and US leaders. Darshana Gauchan, EAC News.
The Secretary of State for the Ministry of Social Affairs, Veterans and Youth Rehabilitation and Secretary General of the Disability Action Council, Amchan Mekara, has said that in recent years, the royal government has paved the way and provided new opportunities for women and girls with disabilities to fully benefit from the National Disability Strategic Plan. EAC News reporter Anthony Ellis has the details.
The Second Secretary of Australian Embassy in Cambodia, Connor Floyd, stated that raising awareness about gender equality for the field of disability is important to address the barriers that the men and women with disabilities face in accessing services and consider options to be taken in order to reduce these barriers. He believes that through a better understanding of gender equality and disability will enable governments as well as other relevant sectors to find ways to contribute in improving the status of individuals and groups, so that when all persons with disabilities can participate and benefit from social activities without facing discrimination. He said eliminating discrimination and promoting the rights of women and persons with disability is not responsibility of any government agency, but our collective role and responsibility. Gender equality entitles equal enjoyment as well as equal value placed on both women and men in society, where all are given the same opportunities, resources and rewards. Speaking at the opening ceremony for the training course on self-interface of gender, disability and response services to improve access to services for members in the Gender Mainstream Working Group of Ministry of Social Affairs on Monday morning, Secretary of State Amchan Mekara said the Ministry of Social Affairs, as well as General Secretariat of the Disability Action Council, are strongly committed to ensuring that all women and girls, especially women and girls with disabilities, have equal rights, opportunities, equality and protection, and that their voices are uplifted and included in the decision-making process. He said the Royal Government of Cambodia has launched a National Strategic Plan on Disability 2019 to 2023, ensuring gender equality for women and girls with disabilities with a clear vision of importance of gender equality for empowerment of women and disabilities and an effective way to achieve sustainable and environmental development.
ចឹងហើយមកខ្ញុំលើកបាញ់មិញនេះថានៅពេលដែលគេនិយាយអំពី gender សម្រាប់ស្ត្រីឬកុមារីដែលមានពិការភាពហ្នឹងសូមឲ្យមានការគិតបញ្ចូលអំពីបរិសុទ្ធឬមួយក៏ស្ត្រីដែលមានពិការភាពផងអញ្ចឹងជាទូទៅគឺអ្វីដែលជាការអំពាវនាវរបស់ខ្ញុំគឺពង្រឹងនៅសមត្ថភាពទោះបីជាស្ត្រីឬកុមារីដែលមានពិការភាពក្តីសូមឲ្យពង្រឹងសមត្ថភាពរបស់ខ្លួនឯងដើម្បីធ្វើការប្រកួតប្រជែងជាមួយនឹងអ្នកដែលមិនមានពិការភាពហើយគេធ្វើអីបានយើងត្រូវធ្វើនឹងឲ្យបានដូចគ្នាដើម្បីធ្វើយ៉ាងណាឲ្យសិទ្ធិខ្លាយជាការពិត
During his speech, the Secretary of State further highlighted the efforts of the head of the Royal Government, Prime Minister Hun Sen in the fight against COVID-19, as well as the provision of various social assistance measures to the poor and vulnerable, including persons with disabilities. He added that in the context of the COVID-19, it has been crucial that action is to be taken so the difficult process made by gender equality over the past few decades would not be diminished by the negative effects by the pandemic. He also clarified that the term gender equality does not only refer to the promotion of women, but critically to the equality between women and men, which mean that no one sex should be promoted above another. Anthony Ellis, EAC News.
The Ministry of Health is reportedly monitoring cases of COVID-19 following the end of the Khmer New Year on the 16th of April 2022. EAC News reporter Dashana Gochin has the details.
Ministry of Health spokesperson Au Van Dien has told EAC News that there had not been any large-scale COVID-19 outbreaks during the course of the Khmer New Year celebrations. However, now that the holiday has come to an end, she said that the ministry will closely monitor the situation to make sure no outbreaks occur, waiting to assess the outcomes for at least 2 more weeks. I cannot say yet, she said, because the celebrations just ended. If there is something wrong, we do not know yet. We will know in a little while. The Khmer New Year was held from 14th to 16th April this year in 2022. According to the Ministry of Tourism, more than 5.1 million tourists traveled across Cambodia for this national holiday, the highest number recorded since the royal government announced the closure of the 20th February community transmission event in December 2021. The Minister of Tourism, Thong Khon, said that the factors that have allowed people to go on vacation for holiday this year include the success of the national vaccination campaign and the easing of COVID-19 restrictions, giving tourists and citizens the confidence to travel. This includes the option to not wear masks while engaging in the Khmer New Year celebrations. On 17th April 2022, one day after the end of the Khmer New Year, Cambodia recorded 16 new cases of COVID-19, all of the Omicron variant, and none of which were imported. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
The Khmer New Year has just ended on the 16th of April 2022. According to the Ministry of Tourism, more than 5.1 million people travel across the country for the occasion. EAC News interviewed some of the people who traveled during the Khmer New Year holiday, who said they are very happy that Cambodia is able to celebrate the traditional New Year again. Many expressed their thanks to Prime Minister Hun Sen for successfully launching the national COVID-19 vaccination campaign, closing the 20th February communities transmission event, and reopening the country in all sectors. EAC News reporter Anthony Ellis will tell you more.
The Plea Tong near Nek Roundabout is a popular spot in Plea Sihanouk province where Cambodians celebrate the New Year, as it is the site where the largest statue in Cambodia has just been erected. Many people come to take photos with the statue and many were not wearing masks.
It's fun to have the country open and back like before. In the past 2 years, we did not even leave the house because of COVID-19. But now, since the Prime Minister has opened up the country, there are a lot of people here.
I feel very happy, even the road is very beautiful and there is a crowd here. Before, I was not able to celebrate the New Year, so I was very sad.
I am really happy. We missed out on celebrations for 2 years. I did not go on any trips. I just stayed at home and felt so bored. I did not go anywhere.
Several civilians expressed their gratitude to Prime Minister Hun Sen for his efforts to bring COVID-19 vaccine to Cambodia, which has helped to build the community's collective immune system and thus feel comfortable and secured enough to travel and enjoy the holiday during the Khmer New Year.
Thanks to the government for issuing adequate vaccinations to the people. People now have the opportunity to meet and hang out with each other and not worry about getting infected with COVID-19.
I would like to thank Prime Minister Hun Sen for letting everyone in Cambodia receive COVID-19 vaccine. Even though COVID is still here, we have already been vaccinated, so we feel safer and happier than if we were not.
Thank you to the Prime Minister for all his efforts to bring vaccines for people throughout the country. And also thank you for peace. Thank you everyone, but especially thank you Prime Minister Hun Sen for bringing such fun back to the country.
During the 3-day Khmer New Year holiday, Sihanouk received about 260,000 visitors, while Battambang province ranked first in the country with over 650,000 tourists. The Minister of Tourism, Tong Kong, has stated that the factors have allowed people to go out and enjoy the holiday this year include the success of the nation vaccination campaign, as well as the relaxation of the COVID-19 restrictions, which has given tourists and citizens confidence to travel and go on vacation. The Royal Government of Cambodia launched a nationwide vaccination campaign in February 2021 following a major community outbreak that began on 20th of February. It took Cambodia 8 months to meet its target goal of full vaccinations, following which the country was able to reopen on the 1st of November 2021. Prime Minister Hun Sen stated that during the inauguration of the Pri Tong Neng statue of Sihanouk on the 16th of April, that all the efforts were made during 2021 were all achievement of the safe environment where Cambodians could safely engage in celebrations this year.
ការពីឆ្នាំទៅគឺជាឆ្នាំដែលលំបាកអ្វីដែលជាការខិតខំរបស់យើងកាលពីឆ្នាំទៅគឺដើម្បីថ្ងៃនេះឯងឆ្នាំនេះឯងអ្វីដែលយើងជាការខិតខំកាលពីប្រហែលខែមុនគឺដើម្បីថ្ងៃនេះឯងខ្ញុំបានប្រកាសជាសាធារណៈខ្ញុំបានប្រកាសជាសាធារណៈថាឆ្នាំនេះបដូរផ្ដាច់ដើម្បីនឹងរៀបចំឲ្យមានការចូលឆ្នាំដោយសារប្រជាពលរដ្ឋរបស់យើងបានអាក់ខានការចូលឆ្នាំ2ឆ្នាំរួចមកហើយការអាក់ខាន2ឆ្នាំនោះយើងមិនតាន់មានវ៉ាក់សាំងគ្រប់គ្រាន់ដើម្បីនឹងចាក់ក៏ប៉ុន្តែបន្ទាប់ពីវ៉ាក់សាំងបានចាក់ជោគជាប់ដោយសារតែយើងគ្រប់គ្រងបានល្អជាមួយនឹង COVID-19 ហើយជាមួយនឹងសន្តិភាពដែលយើងរកបានក្នុងរយៈកាល24ឆ្នាំកន្លងទៅធ្វើឲ្យប្រជាពលរដ្ឋរបស់យើងដើរលេងគ្រប់ទីកន្លែងទាំងអស់ជាមួយនឹងបញ្ចុះបាយសម្លៀកបំពាក់ក៏ដូចជាផ្លូវថ្នល់ដែលធ្វើដំណើរបានច្រើនចំណុចនេះគឺជាចំណុចដែលខ្ញុំប្រកាសណាខ្ញុំសប្បាយរីករាយជាមួយនឹងប្រជាជន
The 2-year interruption was due to the lack of vaccines distributed. But after our vaccination rate was high, because we have managed the COVID-19 outbreak well, and we have the peace and have gained over the past 24 years, our people now are able to travel everywhere with clothes and with the ease of new roads. Many of these points have made me happy with our people. The Prime Minister said that although he still has some concerns about COVID-19, he will encourage people to travel freely in the Kingdom of Cambodia and welcome Cambodians abroad to visit the country because the Royal Government has now lifted COVID-19 restrictions, even on foreigners, allowing all travellers to take responsibility for their own health and safety. However, the Prime Minister continues to call the citizens to implement the 3 do's and 3 don'ts health measures and to get vaccinated against COVID-19 with both the basic and booster doses. As of April the 17th, 2022, Cambodia has vaccinated more than 14 million people, which accounts to 92.84% of the total population. The Ministry of Health has also confirmed that there are no large-scale outbreaks of COVID-19 were recorded over the Khmer New Year. Anthony Ellis, EAC News.
Rescuers searched for dozens of people still missing in South Africa, KwaZulu-Natal province on Sunday, 17th of April, after floods and mudslides killed 443 people.
The floods have left thousands of homeless, knocked out power and water services and distributed operations of one of Africa's busiest ports, Durban. A provincial economic official estimated an overall infrastructure damage of more than 10 billion rand, or $684.6 million. The province premier, Sheila Zikalala, said the death toll had risen to 443, with a further 63 people unaccounted for. In some of the worst affected areas, residents said they were terrified by the thought of more rain, which was forecast to fall on Sunday. Some face an agonising wait for the news of missing loved ones. We haven't lost hope, although we are constantly worried as the days continue, Simbongali Majolka, a resident of Sunshine Village in the Tekawini municipality, whose 8-year-old nephew had been missing for days. We are traumatised by the sight of rain, Wajoka, 47, told Reuters, adding that her home had been badly damaged. In a nearby semi-rural area, 3 members of Siberia family were killed when the walls of the room where they slept collapsed and a 4-year-old Bongeka Siberia is still missing. Everything is harsh, reminder of what we've lost and not being able to find in devastating because we can't grieve or heal. At this stage, we are left feeling empty. Lethwi Siberia, 33, told reporters. President Cyril Ramaphosa's office said late on Saturday he had delayed a work visit to Saudi Arabia to focus on the disaster. Ramaphosa will meet cabinet ministers to assess the response to the crisis.
Residents of Mariupol walked past the bodies of civilians as they evacuated their destroyed homes on Sunday, 17th of April, as Moscow said its forces had almost completely seized the port town. Ukrainian soldiers resisted the Russian ultimatum to lay down arms in Mariupol, and Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal said the city had not been entirely taken by Russian forces. The city still has not fallen, he told ABC's This Week program, adding that Ukrainian soldiers continue to control some parts of the southeastern Ukrainian city. A reporter asked a resident, Irina, if the army was evacuating them. Irina saying, "Yes, we came to get out our stuff. Gnats tried to break in, looked like they failed, so we can get at least some of our stuff. We left our apartment wearing winter clothes. This was all we got." Mariupol resident Irina saying, "My mother is not ambulatory. My father is recovering after his second surgery. I don't know what we are going to do. I have a daughter in DNR, self-proclaimed Donetsk People Republic. Maybe we will try to move there for the time being. I hope they will rebuild Mariupol. The most important thing is to restore utility systems. Summer will pass fast, and in winter it will be hard. She is wounded, got under shelling when she was entering our house. The child had got injured, her leg and head." Russia said on Saturday, 16th April, it had control of urban areas, with some Ukrainian fighters remaining in Azovstal steelworks overlooking the Sea of Azov. Capturing Mariupol, the main port in the Donbas region, would be a strategic prize for Russia, connecting territory held by pro-Russian separatists in the east with the Crimea region that Moscow annexed in 2014. Citizens of the pulverized port fled their smashed and burned home, driven away by Russian-backed troops, leaving behind the bodies of citizens killed in the conflict. About 4 million Ukrainians have fled the countries. Cities have been shattered and thousands have died since the start of the invasion on February 24th. Russia said Ukraine had lost more than 4,000 soldiers in Mariupol as of Saturday. Kyiv said its total troop losses nationwide so far in the war are less than that, between 2,500 and 3,000. Reuters has not been able to verify either side's figures. French security forces briefly fired tear gas in Paris as opponents of the far-right marched in the capital on Saturday, 16th of April. Then the demonstrators resumed their protest minutes later.
Thousands of anti-far-right protesters marched across France on Saturday as opponents of presidential candidate Marine Le Pen seek to form a united front to prevent her from winning an election runoff against incumbent Emmanuel Macron on April 24th. Police have warned of possible incidents as demonstrators convene in some 30 cities. Macron, a pro-European Union centrist, won the presidency in 2017 after easily beating Le Pen when voters rallied behind him in the runoff to keep her far-right party out of power. This year, the first round of voting last Sunday set up the same battle, but Macron is facing a much tougher challenge. "The far right is a risk to our country," he told supporters overlooking the Mediterranean port city, which put far-left candidate Jean-Luc Mélenchon first on April 10th. "Don't heckle them, beat them," he said. Prior to the first round of the election, Le Pen successfully tapped into anger over the cost of living and a perception that Macron is disconnected from everyday hardships. That saw her finish with 23.1% of votes compared to 27.85% for Macron. However, she has appeared more rattled this week, as the focus has turned to her manifesto and opinion polls have shown Macron extends his lead. A poll on Saturday showed the president winning the runoff with 55.5% of votes.
The President of the Senate, Sai Chum, chaired a meeting on Tuesday, 19th of April 2022, deciding to open the 8th session of the 4th Legislature to review and comment on the draft law on plant protection and biosecurity. EAC News reporter Anthony Ellis has the story.
During this meeting on Tuesday, the President of the Senate reviewed the decided of the proposal of the Committee on Investment Planning, Agriculture, Water Resources, Meteorology, Rural Development, Environment, to put a draft in law on plant protection and biosecurity into the agenda of the 8th session of the Senate of the 4th Legislature. The draft law also aims to improve agricultural productivity, food security, hygiene, quality and safety of agricultural products, as well as biosecurity of plants and goods subject to inspections for trade facilitation. According to the Cambodian government, the new draft law will contribute to the development of the agricultural sector, such as protecting the interests of farmers through the management of plant protection and the implementation of biosecurity measures to reduce the losses that can be caused by harmful contamination of plant resources and crop products in agricultural protection systems. The draft of law on protection of plants and biosecurity also specifically prevent the implementation of outbreak and infestive pollutants that cause catastrophic damage to agricultural crops, biodiversity and the environment of Cambodia. In fact, the outbreak of pests such as golden apple snails, greening, Monsac virus, fusarium wilt, and the fall of armyworms on coal and recently affected agricultural products and national economy remarkable. Anthony Ellis, EAC News.
In the first quarter of 2022, Cambodia has recorded over $13 billion in total trade volume, which is a 9.1% increase from the same period last year. This is according to the latest figures from the General Department of Customs and Excise of the Ministry of Economy and Finance. EAC News reporter Sepol Kong has more details.
Cambodia has exported around $5.7 billion worth of product to foreign market in the first quarter of the year, which is a 25.7% increase from the same period in 2021. Meanwhile, there has been a 0.9% decrease in imports, recorded at a total of $7.4 billion. Among the markets Cambodia has been exported to the United States is by far the biggest, with a volume of export amounting to over $2.1 billion, an increase of 43.7%. The second biggest export market is Vietnam at $758.8 million, followed by Thailand with $248.5 million, and China with $333.5 million. Cambodia also saw a 30.1% increase in goods and raw materials imported from China compared to the first 3 months of 2021, amounting to over $2.5 billion. Sripokong, EAC News.
The General Department of Taxation of the Ministry of Economy and Finance has allowed all media editors or business owners to submit value-added tax declarations through the e-filing online business tax declaration management system for their own convenience. EAC News reporter Dashana Gochen has the details.
The guidelines released by the General Department of Taxation on the introduction of value-added tax declaration through the online business tax declaration management system, also known as e-filing, states that this is an alternative online tax declaration method introduced for the purpose of modernizing the tax administration, providing efficiency and effectiveness, as well as ensuring transparency, convenience, speed, time savings, and reliability in providing services to taxpayers. The department states that from now on, all self-declared taxpayers who receive supplies of digital goods or digital services and all e-commerce activities conducted by non-resident taxpayers must file their VAT declaration forms from the tax period starting in April 2022 using the e-filing online business tax return management system. All medium and large taxpayers must file a VAT return using the e-filing system no later than the 25th of the following month. The tax-related transactions are tax-exempt by 10% from the delay in filing the declaration. To learn more about the use of digital shopping lists or services or alternative taxation in the e-filing management system, users can refer to the detailed instructions released by the General Department of Taxation on their website, where there is a video tutorial. Taxpayers can also call the department's call center at 1277 or send a message in the GDT live chat by downloading the app from the iOS App Store or Google Play Store. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
Ukraine has completed a questionnaire which will form a starting point for the European Union to decide on membership for Kyiv. Ihor Zokwa, deputy head of President Volodymyr Zelensky, office said,
"We are with you as you dream of Europe."
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen handed the questionnaire to Zelensky during the joint news conference in Kiev on April the 8th. She pledged a speedier than usual start to Ukraine's bid to become a member of the EU following Russia's invasion of the country, saying the progress would take weeks rather than years. Shokova also said that the European Commission will need to issue a recommendation on Ukraine's compliance with the necessary membership criteria. Shavkova added that Ukraine expects to acquire the status of the candidate country of EU accession in June during the scheduled meeting of the European Council meeting. We understand that it is formally Ukraine's path towards the European Union. We understand that other people deep in the souls and minds are part of the Europe anyway for a long time. But nevertheless, each country has to take this path. Unfortunately, we are walking this path in tragic times, and many people who have European mentality are losing their lives, the most precious thing to have. President Volodymyr Zelensky had said. EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen told reporters, "In this envelope, dear Vladimir, there is an important step towards the EU membership. The questionnaire that is in here is the bias of the discussion in the upcoming weeks. The European Council is to meet in June the 23rd, the 24th, according to the Council schedule on its website."
Iran's armed forces will target Israel's heart if it makes the slightest move against the Islamic Republic. President Ibrahim Raisi told a military parade on Monday, 18th of April, amid stalled talks between Tehran and world powers to revive a 2015 nuclear pact.
Israel, widely believed to have the Middle East's only autonomic arsenals, says it will not be bound by any Iran nuclear deal and could eventually take unilateral actions against Iranian nuclear sites. The message for the Zionist regime is that if you are looking to the normalist relations with some country of the region, you should know that even the slightest movement of yours is not hidden from our intelligence, security, and armed forces. You should also know that if you make even the slightest move against the Iranian people, rest assured that the target of our armed forces will be the center of the Zionist regime, Raisi said in a televised speech at a military parade to mark the National Army Day. Troops marched in front of the podium where Raisi stood with army officers, helicopters flew overhead and parachutists dropped down over the parade area near the tomb of Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, the founder of the Islamic State. The United States and Iran have been engaged in direct talk for more than a year to rescue the pact. Washington left it in 2018 and reimposed sanctions on Tehran. But the talks were suspended last month over the unresolved resolve of whether the United States might remove the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps from the U.S. Foreign Terrorist Organization list as demanded by Tehran. Iran has reacted by breaching the deal's limit on its nuclear program. Under the deal, Iran limited its nuclear force in return for relief for economic sanctions. It has accused Israel of several attacks on facilities linked to the program and killing Iranian nuclear scientists. Israel has neither denied nor confirmed the allegations. Israel, which the Islamic Republic refuses to recognize, says it will not accept the Islamic Republic as a nuclear threshold state.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has said that the Khmer New Year celebration this past weekend showed the efforts made by the Cambodian people over the past 2 years of the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as their active participation in maintaining safety and keeping the outbreak under control. He additionally likened the preparation and celebration of the traditional Khmer New Year in 2022 to the liberation from genocide and victory over the war from the Khmer Rouge regime. EAC News reporter Anthony Ellis has the details.
Speaking at the inauguration ceremony of the achievements made in the flood protection project in Phnom Penh Wednesday morning the 20th of April, Prime Minister Hun Sen said that the fact that the people of Cambodia were able to enjoy the Khmer New Year festive this year explains why he decided to suspend the Khmer New Year celebrations in 2020 and 2021, the reason being to protect the lives of the people.
នៅក្នុងកលៈទេសៈនៃឱកាសចូលឆ្នាំនោះខ្ញុំបានប្រកាសថាយើងកំពុងតែស្ថិតនៅក្នុងមាត់ជ្រោះមរណៈហើយសូមអវង្កបងប្អូននៅតាមផ្ទះព្រោះពេលនោះភាពសាហាវនៃ COVID-19 គឺខ្លាំងមែនទែនគឺមួយថ្ងៃឆ្លងរាប់រយនាក់ឡើងដល់ពាន់នាក់ស្លាប់បើនិយាយកាន់តែស្លាប់តែប្រហែលខែនោះអស់ជាង 3000 នាក់មិនមែនរឿងលេងសើចទេមិនមែនរឿងលេងសើចទេធ្ងន់ធ្ងរណាស់សភាពការនោះអញ្ចឹងបានជាអ្វីបងប្អូនមកដល់ពេលនេះទើបដឹងថាហ៊ុនសែនបានធ្វើការពីពេលមុនគឺដើម្បីអីដើម្បីសេចក្តីសុខរបស់បងប្អូននៅពេលនោះនឹងនាំមកនូវការសប្បាយរីករាយនៅពេលនេះ
Cambodia failed to celebrate the Khmer New Year in 2020 and 21 due to COVID-19 pandemic and because of the population had not yet been adequately vaccinated. The royal government launched a nationwide vaccination campaign in February 2021 following the 20th February community transmission event, which began the latest COVID-19 outbreak in the country. After 8 months, Cambodia had successfully vaccinated 100% of its target population, which allowed for the full reopening of the country on November the 1st of 2021. As the Khmer New Year celebrations went forward this year, more than 5.1 million Cambodians are reported to have travelled across the country for the holiday, according to a report of Ministry of Tourism. Anthony Ellis, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has called for no violence, including both physical or verbal violence, in the upcoming local elections, in order to maintain the dignity and neutrality of the voting process. He made this remark while speaking in the inauguration ceremony of the achievements made in the flood protection project in Phnom Penh, improving the city's canal drainage system on Wednesday morning. EAC News reporter Dashana Gochin has more.
While speaking at the inauguration ceremony of the achievements made in Phase 4 of the flood protection project in Phnom Penh on Wednesday morning, the Prime Minister said that the next month marks the beginning of the election campaign season, with all political parties running in the election set to start their campaigns in public places. In this regard, the Prime Minister ordered the relevant authorities to facilitate all political parties, whether ruling or non-ruling, to have the same right to campaign for their members. He also called for stability and non-violence during the entirety of the campaign and election process.
អពេលវេលាឲ្យគ្រប់ទីកន្លែងទាំងអស់រក្សានៅការខិតខំដើម្បីឲ្យប្រជាពលរដ្ឋបានចូលរួមបោះឆ្នោតនិងជ្រើសរើសដោយសេរីស្រឡាញ់គណៈបកមួយណាស្រឡាញ់បេក្ខជនណាបោះឲ្យបេក្ខជននោះទៅ
Prime Minister Hun Sen, who is also the president of the Cambodian People's Party, has announced that he will not participate in campaigns during this election season and leaves local party officials to campaign for their own respective votes. The 5th Commune District elections of 2022 will be held on 5th June, with 17 political parties registered to run, while the election campaign will begin on 21st May. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has said that as herd immunity grows stronger, the obligation to wear a mask becomes no longer necessary. In this regard, he ordered the Minister of Labour, Sam Heng, to work with the relevant authorities to establish a factory vaccination campaign to further strengthen the community's collective immune system. While speaking at the inauguration ceremony of the achievements made in the flood protection project in Phnom Penh on Wednesday morning, the Prime Minister appealed to the public to get their booster shots to further build herd immunity. He continued by calling on the Minister of Labour and other relevant authorities to make arrangements for a factory vaccination campaign, which will allow factory workers to take a day off to receive their booster dose and thus strengthen workers' protection.
ហើយប្រមូលផ្ដុំតម្រង់រោងចក្រដោយសហការជាមួយម្ចាស់រោងចក្រហើយកម្មករបានសម្រាប់ចាក់វ៉ាក់សាំងព្រោះកន្លែងនោះគឺជាកន្លែងដែលងាយបើសិនជាការកើតឡើងនៅកន្លែងហ្នឹងគឺលំបាកអារម្មណ៍អិនសម័យទៅធ្វើការងារហ្នឹងឲ្យបានល្អសហការជាមួយនឹងបណ្ដារោងចក្រដើម្បីធ្វើកិច្ចការងារហ្នឹងឲ្យបានល្អចាក់សម្រាប់ឲ្យកម្មការនេះរបស់យើងទទួលបាននៅការការពារខ្លួនយ៉ាងរឹងមាំដែលអាចជៀសផុតពី ហានិភ័យនៃការឆ្លង
The Prime Minister also stated that only receiving the 2 base doses of the vaccine was no longer effective, and people will need to receive a 3rd dose to continue their self-protection. He further confirmed that we now have at least 6 million people left to receive the 3rd dose. On 18th of April, the Ministry of Health announced that it would increase the number of mobile doctors deployed to provide basic and booster vaccines so that it would make it easier for members of the public to get their vaccines and strengthen herd immunity at a faster pace. This latest vaccination drive is jointly coordinated by the Ministry of Labour and Vocational Training, local authorities, the Ministry of Education, Youth and Sports, and capital provincial administrations at key locations such as factories, enterprises, markets, towns, and schools. As of Tuesday, 19th of April, Cambodia has vaccinated over 14.8 million people, which is 92.89% of its total population. Additionally, 8 million people have at least received their 3rd dose of the vaccine, and more than 1.2 million people have received their 4th dose.
The US Embassy in Cambodia says that the US-ASEAN Summit, which will be held in mid-May, will mark the 45th anniversary of the ASEAN-US relations and demonstrate the United States' enduring commitment to the ASEAN community in delivering sustainable solutions to the region's most pressing challenges. Stephanie Arazat, spokesman of the United States Embassy in Phnom Penh, told EAC News that the United States welcomes the ASEAN-US Summit to be held in the middle of the next month in the United States in working with the Cambodian government on shared priorities, including sustainable development, post-pandemic recovery, Mekong River environment challenges, climate change and human capital development. The head of the royal government spokesman, Phai Siphan, told EAC News that maintaining ASEAN centrality is something that Cambodia adheres to. Whether as member of the ASEAN chairman, he said that Cambodia has always adhered to the ASEAN Charter, the most important of which consensus and policy piece of cooperation. He said, because we take ASEAN laws seriously, because when there are other disputes, we take a diplomatic solution, we are neutral. We have consensus, we are united, and no one is forcing us to follow who is who. And thirdly, we will talk about peace cooperation. It means that all countries are friends, not enemies. We cannot stand on either side to quarrel with each other. We must follow the law. The ASEAN-US Summit will be held on May 12-13, 2022, the second special summit since 2016 and the first face-to-face meeting for leaders of both countries and 2 regions since 2017. On January 14th, 2022, US President Joe Biden issued an invitation to Prime Minister Hun Sen to attend the ASEAN-US Summit and stated, I look forward to welcoming you to Washington this auspicious occasion soon. Anthony Ellis, EAC News.
Then, President Donald Trump attempted a coup on January 6, 2021, and that will be a centerpiece of committee hearings in Congress next month, said Democrat Jamie Raskin, a committee member who led the prosecution of Trump's second impeachment. On that day in 2021, Trump supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol building, encouraged by the Republican president in a speech outside the White House to protest formal congressional certification of Democrat Joe Biden's victory over Trump in November 2020 election. This was a coup organized by the president against the vice president and against the Congress in order to overturn the 2020 presidential election, Raskin said in an interview with Reuters. Climate One radio program and The Guardian newspaper when asked what he has learned so far from the committee's probe. U.S. Representative Benny Thompson, who chairs the Special House of Representatives committee organized by Democrats to look into events leading up to the January 6th assault, has told reporters that he expects public hearings to resume in May. We're going to tell the whole story of everything that happened. There was a violent insurrection and an attempted coup, and we were saved by then Vice President Mike Pence's refusal to go along with that plan, said Raskin, a member of the House Special Committee. It was unclear whether Raskin during the interview was expressing only his thoughts or the thinking also of fellow makers serving on the Special Committee made up of 7 Democrats and 2 Republicans. In July 2021, a new book said senior uniformed military leaders had been concerned about a potential coup. But in a statement then, Trump said he had never threatened or spoken to anyone about a coup. Shortly after organizing last year, the House panel held an initial hearing with testimony from 4 police officers who said they were beaten and taunted with racial insults as they tried to defend the Capitol from attackers. The violence capped months of Trump arguing the election had been stolen from him through massive voter fraud, a claim he still asserts despite its rejection by numerous court rulings, Trump's own Justice Department, and recounts sanctions by his fellow Republicans. Ruskin said the hearings will lay out for the public the steps the former president and his associates took to try to stay in power despite a clear-cut defeat. Had the riots succeeded in preventing the certification, Ruskin said, Trump was prepared to seize the presidency and likely declare martial law. He said the committee had yet to decide whether to try to seek testimony from Trump or Pence. Every 4 years, the vice president is charged with overseeing the formal count in Congress of presidential elections. Pence rejected pleas to set aside the November 2020 result, which would have paved the way for the House of Representatives to in effect conduct a second election, with Republicans holding an advantage that could have installed Trump for a second term. The attack left 4 people dead on January 6. One Capitol Police officer who fought with rioters died the next day. About 800 people have been charged with crimes relating to the attack. The House panel has collected more than 100,000 documents, with investigators conducting more than 800 interviews, according to lawmakers. We don't have a lot of experience with coups in our own country, and we think of a coup as something that takes place against a president, Ruskin said. But January 6, 2021 was different, he said, because it did not involve the military or other faction attacking the president. It's what the political scientists call a safe coup. It's a president fearful of defeat, overthrowing the constitutional process, Ruskin said. The House of Representatives twice impeached Trump, the second time following the Capitol assault. The U.S. Senate acquitted Trump both times. At political rallies since then, the former president has dropped hints he might run again in 2024. Sri Lankan police fired live ammunition to scatter protesters on Tuesday, 19th of April, killing 1 person and injuring a dozen more, as the country sought rapid financial assistance from the International Monetary Fund to ease a worsening economic crisis.
Demonstrations have raged across the South Asian island country of 22 million people for weeks, voicing anger against the government's mishandling of the economic and led the shortages of essentials and prolonged power cuts. Mihiri Piyaganani, director of Kengali Teaching Hospital, said the last one protester was killed and 12 injured were hospitalised, including 2 critical condition after clashes broke out between demonstrations and police in the central town of Rampakakana. The deceased person, the first fatality since the largely peaceful protest began last month, had likely been shot. Prigyani told Reuters, "We are suspecting gunshot injuries but need a post-mortem to confirm the exact cause of death." Disturbances erupted after police asked protesters to move away from a key railway line which had been blocked for hours. Police spokesman Nalin Tawandua said, "Several injured policemen have also been hospitalised," he said, adding live ammunition and tear gas has been used to rebel a crowd, pelting stones and other objects. Police are still in the area and attempting to restore calm.
Now for a look at news making international headlines this Monday, 18th of April. Thousands of people gathered in Tokyo on Saturday to protest against Japan's nuclear policy, including its plan to release treated water from the crippled nuclear power plant into the ocean. 11 years after one of the world's worst nuclear disasters, residents in Fukushima continue to face challenges from the aftermath. Over 2,000 people gathered on Saturday to protest against the action by the Japanese government and the Tokyo Electric Company, the latter facing more than 30 lawsuits after lives were devastated by the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant accident. The contaminated soil is kept at more than 800 temporary locations in 6 municipalities in Fukushima Prefecture. The government's plan to release treated water from the crippled nuclear power plant into the ocean has spurred strong protest, including among the international communities. People are not convinced by the government explanation that it is running out of options and water to be released presents no harm to the sea life. We do not trust the government's action. We will never allow the flushing of polluted water without the locals' permission, chairman of the Association of Landowners in Fukushima. The Japanese government sought the endorsement of the International Atomic Energy Agency, but the public still worries that adequate measures have not been taken. I totally disapprove. The IAEA is an organization that promotes nuclear power. We feel a sense of crisis that the IAEA is deeply involved in the policies related to the reconstruction of Fukushima and the Fukushima nuclear accident, said Sayoko Uno, a protester from Fukushima. The IAEA task force is scheduled to visit Japan again and conduct more reviews shortly, but many Japanese are asking for a third party, including local scientists, to inspect the treated water. The Daiichi nuclear plant had its key cooling functions knocked out after being battered by a massive earthquake-triggered tsunami in 2011, resulting in the worst nuclear crisis since Chernobyl in 1986.
Russian troops on Saturday shot down a Ukrainian military transport plane near Odessa, which was carrying weapons supplied by Western countries, according to the Russian Ministry of Defense. Russian Defense Ministry spokesman Igor Konashnikov told a news briefing on Saturday that the Russian Air Force shot down a Ukrainian military transport plane near Odessa. The plane was used to transport a large amount of weapons supplied by Western countries to Ukraine. Russian Foreign Minister spokesman Maria Zakharova said on Friday that the Russian Foreign Ministry has sent a diplomatic note to all countries, including the United States, regarding the aiming Ukraine. Early on Thursday, the Washington Post reported that Russia sent a formal diplomatic note to the US government early this week and warned of unpredictable consequences if the US and NATO continue to send arms to Ukraine. According to a CNN report with the White House official on Saturday, the latest batch of US military aid package for Ukraine is worth $800 million, has begun arriving in Ukraine, including military helicopters, howitzers, launches and drones. This latest shipment has brought the total amount of the US military assistance to Ukraine up to more than $3 billion.
And Tunisia will work with other countries that have offered to help to prevent environmental damage after a merchant ship carrying up to 1,000 tons of oil sank in Tunisian waters, the Defense Ministry said on Sunday. The ship was heading from Equatorial Guinea to Malta when it sank 7 miles off the coast of the southern city of Gabes on Friday. The Tunisian Navy rescued all 7 crew members following a distress call. Officials have said the ship was carrying between 750 and 1,000 tons of fuel. The Defense Ministry did not name the countries that have offered to help, but local media has said Italy was expected to send a naval vessel specialized in dealing with marine disasters. I want to confirm that there are no leaks and that the doors of the ship are safe. They are tightly closed and there is not even a leakage of the gasoil fuel material that represents the shipment, Tunisian Transport Minister Rabi Majidi told reporters. A specialized marine diving team has begun working around the ship to check for any oil leakage. If the leakage occurs on the Sea of Gabes and Ganoche, we will not have anything left, as we already only have a little part of the sea left to live on, said fisherman Hajed Salami. On Saturday, Tunisian authorities opened an investigation into the ship's sinking, which the Environment Ministry said was caused by bad weather. The coast of Gabes has suffered major pollution for years, with environmental organizations saying industrial plants in the area have been dumping waste directly into the sea.
Now for a look at news making international headlines this Tuesday, 19th of April. After withdrawing troops from near Kyiv and the north of Ukraine late last month, Russian forces have now started the Battle of Donbass. Footage showed large-scale destruction in the Azovstal plant, which contains a myriad of buildings, blast furnaces, and rail track. Russia has been trying to take full control of the southeastern port city of Mariupol, which has been besieged for weeks, and which would be a huge strategic prize linking territory held by pro-Russian separatists in the east with the Crimea region that Moscow annexed in 2014. The city council said at least 1,000 civilians were hiding in underground shelters beneath the vast steel work. Mariupol resident Olga said the priority at present was solving the lack of water. We can't do the laundry because we don't have water. We don't have electricity. Now we have to carry water from afar, she told Reuters. Major Serhiy Bolina, the commander of Ukraine's 36th Marine Brigade, which is still fighting in Mariupol, appealed for help in a letter to Pope Francis on Monday, saying women and children were trapped among fighters in the city's steel works. This is what hell looks like on earth. It's time for help, not just by prayers. Save our lives from satanic hands, the letter said according to excerpts tweeted by Ukraine's ambassador to the Vatican. Meanwhile, Russian missile strikes killed at least 2 people in Ukraine's Kharkiv city on Monday, April 18th. An eyewitness, Ihor, who would only provide his first name, said that he saw both missiles hit a residential area. Russia also sent missiles attacks in Lviv, which killed 7 people, the first civilian victims in the western city bordering Poland. Maxim Kozetskiy, the governor of Lviv, Lviv, a city which lies 60 kilometers from Polish border, said preliminary reports suggested there were 4 strikes, 3 on warehouses that were not in use by the military, and another which hit the car tire service point. Andriy Sadoviv, the mayor of Lviv, said the youngest victim among the dead was aged 30. He said the blast also wounded 11 and shattered windows of a hotel housing Ukrainians who had evacuated from elsewhere in the country. Russia denies targeting civilians and rejects what Ukraine says is evidence of atrocities, saying Ukraine has staged them to undermine peace talks. Moscow caused its action launched almost 2 months ago a special military operation to demilitarize Ukraine and eradicate what it calls dangerous nationalists.
Peruvian President Pedro Castillo said on Monday the 18th of April that he would make a law proposal to provide chemical castration for rapists. Castillo said it expected support from Congress after a case of a 3-year-old girl who was kidnapped and raped in the town of Chilagao, which shook the country. In the streets of Lima on Sunday the 17th of April, groups of protests demanded justice for the child, chanting, "Children shouldn't get raped." It's unthinkable this government is not doing anything to put an end to all of this. Its unidentified protester told the local media as she cried and held her baby in her arms. On the 13th of April, Chialo police detained a 40-year-old man accused of kidnapping and raping a 3-year-old girl. The chief of the Lambaque region police, General Fernando Rios Zavala, said the man admitted to the police he kidnapped the girl after being stopped in his vehicle by the authorities.
And protesters gathered in Toronto on Monday to demand justice for Canada's Indigenous children that suffered abuse in residential schools, many of them run by the Catholic Church. Canada's state-sanctioned schools forcibly separated about 150,000 Indigenous children from their families, subjecting many of them to physical and sexual abuse. The country's Truth and Reconciliation Commission has called the practice cultural genocide. On 1st April, Pope Francis issued an apology for the Catholic Church's role for the deplorable behavior of those members of the Catholic Church. "I ask forgiveness from God, and I would like to tell you from the bottom of my heart that I am very pained," he said. But protesters say the Pope's apology does not go far enough. Protesting outside St. Michael's Cathedral Basilica, they hung up the names of the abuse victims on the cathedral's fence. As part of a 2006 settlement agreement, an entity incorporated by the Catholic Church agreed to pay $63.2 million to an Aboriginal Healing Foundation for survivors through services such as counseling and further fundraising. According to the Indian Residential School History and Dialogue Center, a 2015 court ruling let the Catholic Church off the hook with tens of millions from the 2006 settlement unpaid.
If it's happening and you need to know about it, you'll get it all right here. EAC News brings you updates and breaking news in English across all of our platforms and channels. The EAC News app, YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and our website www.eacnews.asia. Join me and the rest of the EAC News team every day on your favorite channels. EAC News, Cambodia made clear.
The Ministry of Health has decided to reduce the quarantine period for foreign tourists who have not been vaccinated or have not been fully vaccinated to 7 days. This reduction is based on a note from the Prime Minister Hun Sen. EAC News reporter Deccan Nin has the story.
In a press release issued on the 21st of April 2022, the Minister of Health, Mom Bun Haing, decided to reduce the period of quarantine from 14 days to 7 days for those who have not been vaccinated or have not been fully vaccinated, including Cambodians and foreigners alike. The minister also ordered that the travelers be given a rapid test on the 7th day after the completion of the flight and 2 rapid tests for the passengers entering the land by the border, once on the day of check-in and again at the end of the quarantine. The Minister of Health and Chairman of the Inter-Ministerial Commission to Combat COVID-19 also ordered the relevant authorities to continue vaccinating both the first and second doses to the Cambodian people and workers on the day they were to leave the quarantine center. Following the outbreak of COVID-19 in 2020, the government required 14 days of quarantine for all incoming travelers. However, due to the successful discovery of the vaccine and the vaccination campaign, the government has decided to waive the condition for passengers who have been fully vaccinated, while those who have not been vaccinated or have not been fully vaccinated are still required to quarantine for 14 days. The new decision has now reduced the quarantine period in half. Dekanin, EAC News.
The Ministry of Labour and Vocational Training has reminded all factory owners to cooperate urgently with local authorities of the capital provinces and the Department of Labour and Vocational Training of the capital and the provinces to prepare booster vaccine to encourage workers in factories. EAC News reporter Deccan Nin has more.
In a statement issued on the 20th of April 2022, the Minister of Labour, Sam Haing, stated that the vaccination arrangement at all factories is to continue to fight and prevent the spread of the new mutant Omicron variant, especially in enterprise factories. The minister also instructed the owners or directors of the factories to manage the workers' vaccination data and fill in the vaccination information in the automated labor inspection website. In case the worker does not have a COVID-19 vaccination card, please fill it in English and vaccination date according to the form specified in the system above. The president of the National Trade Union Coalition, Fasa Lee, told EAC News that he supported the government's move now because it is a consideration for workers after the new year. He said, "It's the best thing after this new year. We are also concerned about the spread of COVID-19. We see that the royal government has recently issued instructions to vaccinate in factories to build a stronger community immune system in a timely manner. This is a good preventive measures with vaccines received from friendly countries." On the 21st of April 2022, Prime Minister Hun Sen ordered the Minister of Labour, Sam Haing, to work with the relevant authorities to establish a factory vaccination campaign to strengthen the community immune system. He asked Minister Sam Haing to organize a vaccination campaign at the factory, allowing workers to take a day off during the vaccination. He said, "His Excellency Sam Haing must do this job well, cooperate with factories to do this job well, inject our workers to get good protection, which can avoid the risk of infection." Dekanin, EAC News.
The Minister of Health, Mon Bun Haing, requested the capital provincial governors to remind the health departments under the Capital Provisional Administration to take measures to provide health services to the people 24 hours a day to provide better services to the people. EAC News reporter Saipor Kong has further details.
In a letter dated 21st April 2022, Minister Mom Bun Haing stated that the ministry had observed that a small number of referral hospitals and health centers were still short of 24-hour service, which affected to provide public services to the people. Therefore, he asked all capital provincial administrations to review this case by updating and monitoring regularly. The minister said we must provide 24-hour service to the people who go to receive the medical services and must update their list and telephone numbers of the service staff at the health facility regularly, post it at their service point and send to the Department of Health of the Capital Provincial Administration to monitor the implementation on regular basis. Son Chae, Executive Director of Affiliated Network for Social Accountability, think that it is a good idea that all referral hospital and health centers are open to the public 24 hours a day. But in order for this to be effective, the Ministry of Health or the Capital Provincial Administration should consider the benefit of nighttime medical care to ensure that they are comfortable working at night, which also ensure the safety as well. He said, I understand that the announcement is just a reminder, but after this reminder, the Ministry of Health should look at its existing systems, such as the benefit that daughter would receive and whether the location of the health center makes it comfortable for daughter to work at night or not. According to the report of the Ministry of Health in 2017, Cambodia has a total of 117 hospitals, while there are 1,191 health centers across the country. Sri Pokong, EAC News.
Domestic tax revenue in the first 3 months of 2022 is worth about $1.2 billion, an increase of about 22.5% compared to the same period in 2021. EAC News reporter Decca Nin has further details.
Domestic tax revenue in the first 3 months of 2022 was worth about $1.2 billion, an increase of about 22.5% compared to the same period in 2021. In a press release issued on the 19th of April 2022, the General Department of Taxation stated that the 5 main sources of tax revenue that have maintained significant growth are in income tax, which collected more than $674 million, more than $193 million in value-added tax, more than $74 million in special value-added tax, more than $78 million in salary tax, and about $56 million in property tax on real estate transfers. Director General of Taxation Kong Vit Bol noted that although the Cambodian economy was affected by COVID-19, tax revenue management is still good. He urged tax officials to continue to strengthen measures, policies, and fiscal administration consistently. On the 24th of March 2022, Prime Minister Hun Sen sent a letter of appreciation to the Director General of the General Department of Taxation, Kong Vit Bol, and all officials of the General Department for their excellent tax collection work in 2021, which collected more than 124.02% of the plan. Prime Minister considers that this is the history of tax collection that the General Department has achieved. Prime Minister Hun Sen said that the tax collection received in 2021 shows the strength of the economy, the strength of independence, and sovereignty of Cambodia. Dekanin, EAC News.
Russia said on Wednesday, the 20th of April, it had test launched its Sama intercontinental ballistic missile, a new addition to the nuclear arsenal which President Vladimir Putin said it would give Moscow's enemies something to think about. Putin was shown on television being told by the military that the missile had been launched from Palestek in the country's northwest to hit targets in the Kamchatka Peninsula in the Far East. Dear comrades, I congratulate you on the successful launch of the intercontinental ballistic missile Samnat. This is a big, momentous advance in the development of Russia's army's advanced weapon systems. The new complex has the highest technical characteristics and can penetrate all modern anti-missile defenses. It has no analogues in the world and will not have any for a long time to come. This truly unique weapon will strengthen the combat potential of our armed forces, reliably ensure Russia's security from internal threats, and provide food for thought for those who, in the heat of friends' aggressive erotic, try to threaten our country, Putin announced publicly. The Sama is a new heavy intercontinental ballistic missile which Russia is expecting to deploy with 10 or more warheads on each missile, according to the US Congressional Research Service. It's been under development for years, and so its test launch is not a surprise for the West, but it comes at a moment the extreme geopolitical tension due Russia's war in Ukraine. A walkout by officials from the United States, Britain and Canada over Russia's participation in the meeting of finance officials from the world's 20th biggest economies did not derail the meeting's focus on finding the common ground to address headwinds confronting global growth, the body's chair said on Wednesday, the 20th of April.
The top finance official walked out of the G20 meeting as Russian representatives spoke, exposing the pending division over Russia continued present in the body. Ukrainian official in Washington seeking billions of dollars of additional funding also walked out of the meeting, a source familiar with the meeting said. Indonesia Finance Minister Sri Mulyani Indrawati, who chaired the gathering in Washington, said that the walkout during the Group of 20 finance ministers and central banker meeting was not a total surprise and was not disruptive to the group wider discussions.
All members see the G20 is a very important forum, a premier economic cooperation forum for us to discuss both in terms of the risks as well as how we should coordinate and collaborate together. I think that is something which is really very strongly expressed during the meeting. So I'm confident that this will not erode the cooperation as well as the role of the G20 forum. This is an extraordinary situation. It's not business as usual, a very dynamic and challenging one. So for Indonesia, since we hosted the first finance minister and central bank governor meeting back in February in Jakarta, the development of the global environment is actually deteriorated and changed very fast. Due to the first pandemic, which is not yet over, the second one is the Russia war in Ukraine. Members expressed deep concerns about humanitarian crisis, economic and financial impact of the war, and called for the end of the war as soon as possible. Many members condemned the war as unprovoked and unjustifiable, and a violation of international law. Members share the view that the war and the associated action have and will continue to hinder the global economic recovery process, raising particular concern about food security and energy prices.
The G20 include Western countries that has accused Moscow of war crime in Ukraine, as well as China, India, Indonesia, and South Africa, which have not joined Western-led sanctions against Russia over the conflict. Indrawati said many countries spoke out against the war at the meeting, although she did not identify them. Over 5 million Ukrainians have fled abroad since Russia invaded on February 24, the biggest attack on a European state since 1945. The United States accuses Russia of committing war crimes in what Moscow called a special military operation. Russia denies the allegations.
The President of the National Assembly of Cambodia, Heng Somrin, and the Speaker of the Lower House of Indian Parliament, Om Birla, have jointly committed to deepening the friendship and cooperation between the Cambodian and Indian parliaments. They both agreed that some areas should be deepened in both bilateral and international frameworks. The two sides also pledged to boost economic, trade, tourism, and cultural cooperation between the two countries. These commitments were made during Speaker Om Birla's visit to Cambodia from the 21st to 24th of April 2022. EAC News reporter Dashana Gojin has the details.
In a working meeting between National Assembly President Heng Somrin and Speaker Om Birla on Friday morning, the leaders of the National Assembly of Cambodia and the Indian Speaker's accompanying delegation together expressed their happiness over the achievements made during the 70-year-long history of diplomatic relations between the two countries. National Assembly President Heng Somrin said that the current visit of Speaker Om Birla has given honor and historical significance to Cambodia, reflecting especially on the continued strengthening of relations, friendship, solidarity, and cooperation between Cambodia and India. He further added that since the first legislature was passed in Cambodia, the National Assembly has continued to strengthen parliamentary diplomatic relations through bilateral and multilateral cooperation with regional and global parliaments in order to contribute to peace, stability, and development in the regional and global framework. The National Assembly of Cambodia has established a parliamentary friendship group with more than 100 parliaments around the world, including the Parliament of India, in order to promote friendly relations and bilateral cooperation for mutual benefit. During the meeting, Speaker Om Birla also expressed his support for the remarks made by National Assembly President Heng Somrin and emphasized that through regular dialogue between leaders, the historical ties between Cambodia and India have been deepened. He emphasized that India attaches great importance to relations with Cambodia, contributing to many Indian-led development projects in Cambodia in the sectors of health, agriculture, and technology, all of which have benefited the Cambodian people. He also cordially invited President Heng Somrin to visit India in the near future. The National Assembly President accepted the request and further invited the Indian parliamentary delegation to attend the 43rd AIPA General Assembly, which will be hosted by the Cambodian Parliament in November as an observer assembly. National Assembly President Heng Samrin also requested the Indian side to expedite the establishment of a free trade agreement between Cambodia and India, to continue to support human resource training in Cambodia, and to also assist in cooperation in the conservation and restoration of cultural heritage sites, urging the government of India to partake in the restoration process of the Bayon Temple and Brevier Temple, particularly since India is the co-chair of the ICC Brevier. In response, Speaker Om Birla accepted the request of President Heng Samrin and promised to give a positive final answer through the Indian ambassador to Cambodia in the future.
India is one of the few countries in the world that recognized the People's Republic of Kampuchea and opened an embassy in Cambodia in 1981. The people of India and Cambodia also hold long historical ties with similar cultures, beliefs, and religions. The visit of Speaker Om Birla signals the strengthening of good relations, cooperation, and solidarity between the two countries. Darshana Gochan, EAC News, National Assembly, Phnom Penh.
Prime Minister Hun Sen left Cambodia on Friday morning to attend the 4th Asia-Pacific Water Summit in Kumamoto, Japan. The Prime Minister's plane departed from Phnom Penh International Airport at around 7:30 a.m. He is set to return to Cambodia on Sunday. EAC News reporter Anthony Ellis has more.
The 4th Asian Pacific Water Summit will be held in Kumamoto, Japan, under the theme Water of Sustainable Development, Best Practices and the Next Generation from the 23rd to the 24th of April. The purpose of this meeting is to share ideas, visions, solutions, and implementation methods with heads of state and representatives from international organisations who support policy, decisions, and accelerate activities related to achieving quality growth towards environmentally resilient and sustainable society. Attendants will discuss how to tackle water-related issues from the COVID-19 pandemic and will assess with improvement of the Asian Pacific region. The meeting also aims to foster further collaboration and partnerships utilising qualified infrastructure to support quality growth. The 4th Asian Pacific Water Summit will also share with the world the long-standing efforts made by the host city, Kumamoto, in conserving groundwater, as well as recovering efforts from the 2016 Kumamoto earthquakes.
Prime Minister Hun Sen left this morning for his overseas trip to Japan. He's due back on Sunday, the 24th of April. During his 2 busy days in Japan, he'll be meeting with other delegates from the Asian Pacific region, also with Japanese delegates and a Japanese businessman. This is Anthony Ellis, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen left Cambodia for Japan on Friday morning to attend the 4th Asia-Pacific Water Summit in Kumamoto. According to the Prime Minister's plans, there will be many other meetings for him to attend other than the summit in Kumamoto, which will benefit Cambodia and its people. EAC News reporter Srepo Kung has the story.
According to the minister delegate attached to the Prime Minister Sri Thamrong, during Prime Minister Hun Sen's 2-day visit to Japan from 23 to 24 April, he will partake in many different programs. Starting from the morning of 23 April, he will hold a bilateral meeting with the Prime Minister of Laos at the request of the Laotian side. Then the Prime Minister and his accompanying delegation will attend the opening ceremony of the 4th Asia-Pacific Water Summit. At noon, after the opening ceremony, the Prime Minister will continue to have lunch with the leaders of the Asia-Pacific region, and on the afternoon of 23 April, he will attend the meeting of Head of State and Government of the 4th Asia-Pacific Water Forum. He will then lead a delegation to meet with the Prime Minister of Japan and also meet with the representative of Mitsubishi and other Japanese companies to inform them about the potential investment opportunity Cambodia offers. The minister delegate said this company, Mitsubishi, is planning a lot of investment in Cambodia. Then the mayor of Kumamoto will lead 8 companies based in Kumamoto to pay a courtesy call to Prime Minister Hun Sen and explore investment and opportunity in Cambodia. Prime Minister Hun Sen will continue to meet with the Japanese Prime Minister Kishida Fumio at a dinner hosted by the Prime Minister of Japan. According to the minister delegate Sri Thamrong, the dinner was organized to thank Prime Minister for attending the Water Summit and to thank him as well as the Cambodian people on the occasion of the Japanese Prime Minister's successful visit to Cambodia at the end of March. On Sunday, 24 April, Prime Minister Hun Sen will return back to Cambodia in the early morning and is set to arrive at Phnom Penh International Airport at around 1 p.m. Srepokong, EAC News.
Two police officers were shot dead and one injured during a drug bust in Tuolprik village, Ang Snu district in Kandap province on Thursday afternoon. 50-year-old Major Churchsupir, a police officer from Tuolprik commune in Ang Snu district, and First Lieutenant Ramsupana, a deputy drug officer of the Kandap province police inspectorate, were shot dead by a drug dealer on Thursday during a drug bust in Kandap province, Ang Snu district. The National Police Commissioner General Nat Savun described the loss of the two police officers as the loss of beloved children, husbands, and fathers, as well as the loss of brave National Police officers who dedicated their time, energy, and personal happiness to living an honorable life for the cause of security and public order. He further described the sacrifices of the two police officers as exemplary, heroic examples who deserve the admiration of leaders and officers of the National Police as well as the Cambodian people. The two deaths caused by the shooting came as a huge shock yesterday as authorities arrested two of the 5 drug dealers. The president of the National Authority for Combating Drugs, Deputy Prime Minister Kai Kamyan, sent a message of condolence to the families of the two police officers who lost their lives in this incident, and also prayed the souls of the two police officers to be reborn as soon as possible and in peace. The bodies of the two officers are currently being kept at their homes to undergo the traditional funeral rites, with the provincial police commissioner paying their respects. The governor of Banabong province, Sok Lu, chaired a meeting on the technical design of the terraces, signs, and sidewalks in the Banabong City Heritage Preservation Area to preserve the beauty of this former French colony and heritage city. EAC News reporter Sri Pokong has the details.
The meeting chaired by Governor Sok Lu on Wednesday, 20 April, was held at Banabong Provincial Hall and discussed the establishment of a working group to study the removal of balconies, the design and construction of a new balcony face, and the study of the cost of construction. The process of clearly informing and explaining the project to dismantle and renovate the balconies of old colonial buildings to the people who live in the area was also discussed. Governor Sok Lu confirmed that this project was being launched in order to preserve the beauty of the old houses left from the French colonial period, which would have increased the value of the Banabong City Heritage Site. In addition, the governor also urged the relevant provincial authorities in Banabong, especially those stationed at road around markets, to arrange public order and to also quickly address environmental issue and garbage in the city to make sure Banabong does not become a city afflicted by high level of garbage, and to ensure that Banabong will be beautiful during all seasons. He also ordered for a study on the possibility of setting up parking lots and photographic location at the Lokta Nambong Krenyung roundabout, and to also plant more trees in the city to make Banabong more attractive and green, and to increase the tourism potential in the province. Banabong is the second largest province in Cambodia, and its city is located along the Songkai River, where there are also the largest number of old houses from the French colonial period. This makes Banabong a national and world heritage site that attract both national and international tourists. Banabong was also the most visited province during the Khmer New Year earlier this month, recording more than 650,000 tourists during this period. Sri Pokong, EAC News.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has exchanged letters with South Korea's outgoing President Moon Jae-in and thanked Moon for his efforts to improve relations. State media KCNA reported on Friday, 22nd of April.
Moon sent a letter on Wednesday, 20th April, and promised continued efforts to help lay the foundation for unification based on the joint declarations reached at their summits in 2018, KCNA said. Kim said in his reply on Thursday that their historic summits in 2018 gave hope for the future to the people, and the two agreed that the ties would develop if both sides make tireless efforts with hope. Kim Jong-un appreciated the pains and effort taken by Moon Jae-in for the great cause of the nation until the last days of his term of office, the official KCNA news agency said, adding the exchange of letters was an expression of their deep trust. Outgoing President Moon Jae-in has asked North Korean leader Kim Jong-un to stay committed to inter-Korean cooperation, saying restarting dialogue was now up to the incoming government of Yoon Suk-yeol, Moon's spokeswoman said on Friday.
Rescue workers retrieved the bodies of Mariupol's dead on Thursday, 21st of April, as Russian President Vladimir Putin declared the port city of Mariupol liberated after nearly 2 months of siege. Around 120,000 civilians are blocked from leaving.
Footage from the devastated port city showed bodies being collected by men in white hazmat suits and being placed in the back of vehicles marked with the letter Z. It is unclear where the bodies were being taken. The remainder of the Ukrainian troops in Mariupol is now holed up in the Azovstal steel plant where they are assisting Russian siege. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said, "The situation is difficult, as you know. The situation is bad. We believe it did not change since yesterday. As you know, several thousands of people are blocked, including servicemen and civilians, women and children mainly. I also told colleagues that nearly 120,000 civilians are blocked in Mariupol, according to our estimates. Mariupol was once home of 400,000 people, has not only the most intensive battle of the war that started when Russian forces invaded on 24th of February, but also the worst human catastrophe."
The U.S. State Department delegation met Palestinian leaders in Ramallah to try to ease tensions on Thursday, 21st of April.
Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas told the delegation that Israel was responsible for the escalation and asked that the United States intervene, according to a Palestinian Authority official. Earlier, the delegation had met with Israeli leaders. Israeli Foreign Minister Yair Lapid discussed with the U.S. envoys Israel's effort in this very challenging period to preserve the status quo on the Temple Mount, according to a ministry statement. While at the Jerusalem Holy Shrine, revered to Muslims as the noble sanctuary Al-Aqsa Mosque compound and to Judaism as the Temple Mount, has surged over the past week, raising concern about a slide back into wider Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Israeli security forces have been on high alert with the Muslim holy month of Ramadan coinciding with the Jewish holiday Passover, the Christianity Easter. The Arab League said Israel has broken the status quo and was allowing Jews to pray at the compound, calling it a provocation. Israel, however, said that there has been no change in its long-standing ban on Jewish prayer at the Flashpoint site. The future of Jerusalem is at the heart of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The old city is in East Jerusalem, captured by Israel in 1967 war and annexed in a move that has not won international recognition. Palestinians want East Jerusalem to be the capital of a state they seek to establish in the occupied West Bank and Gaza.
Now for a look at news making international headlines this Wednesday, 20th of April. Israeli airstrike hits camp used by Hamas and another Gaza faction on Tuesday, April 19th. Palestinian sources said after hours, the Israeli military said it had shot down a rocket fired from the Gaza Strip. The military said one target was an arms manufacturing site. No one was hurt. The rocket launch was the first such attack in months as tensions over a Flashpoint Jerusalem shrine drew angry pro-Palestinian rhetoric from Jordan and U.S. mediation efforts. No Gaza faction claimed responsibility for the launch, which followed warnings by the dominant Hamas Islamists of reprisal for Israeli conduct around Jerusalem Al-Aqsa Mosque compound. Since Friday, April 15, Al-Aqsa, also revered by Jews as a vestige of two ancient temples, has seen confrontations between Palestinian stone throwers and Israeli riot police, recalling the violence that helped fan a Gaza war 1 year ago. Palestinians accused Israel of encroaching on Al-Aqsa during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. Israel says Palestinian protesters seek to disrupt Muslim prayer for political ends and to prevent visits by Jews who are now celebrating Passover. The tensions complicate Israel's security ties with Jordan, which is the custodian of Al-Aqsa and has a Palestinian majority.
Russia will retaliate against Poland if its embassy in Warsaw stops working because it cannot receive fresh funds from Moscow, its ambassador warned on Tuesday, 19th of April. In March, Poland expelled 45 Russian diplomats over allegations of working for Russian intelligence and blocked the embassy's bank accounts. Moscow, which dismissed the accusations and baseless, retailed in kind. We have some cash reserves, but they are not unlimited unless the situation changes. After some time, it may happen that we shall not be in a position to pay our bills, Sergei Adrev, 63, told Reuters. And it should be clear that as soon as our embassy stops functioning here, the same will happen to the Polish embassy in Moscow, he added. Andreev did not specify how soon the embassy may run out of cash, but added that about 3/4 of the Russian officials who had diplomatic passports were expelled from Poland. He said that Poland's stance towards Russia since the Ukraine's crisis began on February the 24th was particularly hostile compared to other international partners. Poland's decision to expel the Russian diplomats followed similar decisions in Baltic states and Bulgaria.
And China firmly rejects the U.S. allegations against China regarding arms control and non-proliferation policies, Wang Wenbin, a spokesman for the Chinese Foreign Ministry, said on Tuesday. Wang's remarks came after a report published by the U.S. State Department, which accused China of failing to adhere to its nuclear testing moratorium and missile non-proliferation and commitment, and questioned China's compliance with the Biological Weapons Convention. As a matter of fact, the U.S. has a deplorable track record in compliance with arms control and non-proliferation agreements and commitments. In recent years, it has been adopting a pragmatic, cherry-picking approach with international arms control treaties and mechanisms, Wang said. The United States has withdrawn from many treaties and organizations, including the INF Treaty and the Open Skies Treaty, unsigned the Arms Trade Treaty, and flip-flopped on the Iranian nuclear issue, the spokesman said. The United States is the only country to stand in the way of negotiations for a protocol that includes a verification regime to the Biological Weapons Convention, while setting up biological laboratories around the world and carrying out biological military activities, Wang said. What the U.S. has done gravely undermines global strategic balance and stability and impedes the international arms control and disarmament process, and therefore has been widely condemned by the international community. However, instead of reflecting upon itself, the U.S. keeps slinging mud at other countries in a bid to create excuses for freeing itself from its bound obligations and scapegoating others, Wang said. It needs to be pointed out that the U.S. is merely chasing shadows, and its accusations against China are nothing but fabrications. With a responsible attitude, China fulfills its international obligations and commitments in earnest, stays committed to multilateralism, and upholds the international system with the UN at its core and the international order based on international law, Wang added.
Now for the look at the news making international headlines this Thursday, the 21st of April.
Nicaragua's parliament, controlled by allies of President Daniel Ortega on Wednesday, April 20th, shut down 25 non-governmental organizations in a move slammed by the opposition as a further attack on civil society. The organizations, many of which have publicly criticized the government, were closed by Congress with 74 votes in favor and 15 abstentions. Lawmakers argued the NGOs have violated Nicaraguan laws and failed to disclose financial accounts. Most NGOs work on human rights issues and carry out social and cultural work. Authorities of the Central American country have shut down 163 NGOs since mass protests against Ortega's government in 2018 sparked a political crisis. Nicaragua's Congress have also moved in recent months to curb the independence of universities. Ortega, one of the leaders of the Sandinista rebellion that toppled former dictator Anastasio Somoza in 1979, was sworn into office for his fourth consecutive term as president in January, 2 months after winning an election dismissed by the United States and other Western nations as fraudulent. The assets of these groups will pass into the hands of the state according to the legislative decision, as has happened in previous cases. We were the only institution that documented the arbitrariness and abuses committed by different powers of the state and by government officials, said Marcos Carmona, who has the Permanent Commission on Human Rights, one of the organizations affected by the measure. Cohen Foundation, the social arm of a powerful business group in Central America, and the foundation of the writer and former vice president of Nicaragua, Sergio Ramirez, currently in exile, were among the NGOs closed.
Czech company ICE will provide 3D concrete printers to make barriers for Ukrainian army fighting Russia's aggression and to build homes after war is over, the firm said. Thousands of homes have been destroyed by Russia's shelling and rockets in the war, forcing millions to seek shelter elsewhere in Ukraine and flee abroad. ICE will first send the Ukraine dozens of barriers and later also up to 20 to 3D printers so they can work on site and to be ready for the construction of the new homes after the war. Chief Executive Thomas Vanrak told Reuters. The barrier and printed of layers of concrete to shapes to give more effective cover against light weapons and grenades, Vanrak said. The barriers were tested in a ballistic laboratory, he said. When the war is over, the printers will switch to building homes. However, the reconstruction work might be some way off. Russia has failed to capture any of Ukraine's latest cities in its nearly 8-week-long invasion, but poured troops back in for assault for the east began this week.
In London Central Hyde Park, troopers from the Household Cavalry were practicing on Wednesday, April 20 for the May 12 to 15 Royal Windsor Horse Show, as well as the additional evening show to mark Queen Elizabeth II Platinum Jubilee, celebrating her 70 years on the throne. Elizabeth, who turned 96 on Thursday, ascended the throne on the death of her father King George VI on February 6, 1952. She is the longest ruling monarch in British history. She has attended the Royal Windsor Horse Show every year since it began in 1943. As part of this year's celebrations, hundreds of horses and 1,000 performers will also take part in Platinum Jubilee celebration, a gallop through history, on the grounds of Windsor Castle. According to the director and producer Simon Brooks Ward, the 90-minute sold-out show will tell the history from Queen Elizabeth I to the present and will include actors and musicians as well as military and equestrian displays. Toymaker Metal said on Thursday, April 21, it was commemorating the monarch's 70 years on the throne with a tribute collection Barbie doll. Dressed in an ivory gown with a blue sash adorned with miniature medallions and ribbons, the figure also had a tiara based on the one Elizabeth wore on her wedding day. The doll will be sold in London store Harrods, Selfridges, and Hamleys ahead of the official Platinum Jubilee celebration on June 2nd to 5.
Now for a look at news making international headlines this Friday, 22nd of April.
Experts have now started raising the possibility that Uganda might lose the Entebbe International Airport over foreign debts, as the media was suggesting the events reminiscent of when the port of Hambantota in Sri Lanka was lost due to debts. The Education Secretary of the Frontline Socialist Party, Pubudu Jayagoda, said that Uganda might not be able to repay a $207 million loan it had borrowed from China on time, spreading rumors amongst media that the airport might be lost at any given time. Beijing, however, categorically denied the accusations. They explained that in case the repayment of loan obligations is not met, various things have to be paid as ransom, adding that there would be a property grab in case a failure of paying was to take place. According to Yasuri Ranaraja, a co-founder of the Belt and Road Initiative Sri Lanka, the media was suggesting that China will take over the Ugandan airport after Beijing rejected Kampala's proposals to re-engage its debt as the airport was not profiting as it was. Jayagoda said China tends to ask for taking possession of highly strategic and important facilities as a precondition for approving a loan to a country. The control of the Colombo port city is with China. The south terminal of the port of Colombo had to be handed over to China, and now some valuable lands in Colombo City have been transferred to a company called Selendiva. It is reported that a significant portion of it will be taken by China, along with 7 acres of valuable land near the port, Jayagoda said. He said that an agreement has been signed to hand over the oil store complex near the Trincomalee port to India as a precondition for obtaining a loan from China and India. He referred to the threat of repayment inability on Sri Lanka, which includes the risk of massive destruction and alienation of the country's national resources, and public property. Jayagoda added that there must be a stop to borrowing and there should be an investment in infrastructure to avoid falling under the debt trap, saying that what happens to Uganda today could happen to Sri Lanka tomorrow.
An explosion claimed by the Islamic State group at the Shiite Mosque in northern Afghanistan city of Mazar-e-Sharif on Thursday, the 21st of April, killed at least 11 people. A health official said one of the series of the blasts around the country. A separate blast caused at least 11 more casualties in Kunduz, another northern Afghan city, according to provincial health official. Islamic State claimed responsibility for the Mazar-e-Sharif attack, according to the statement of the group's Telegram channel. The explosions happened during the Islamic holy month of Ramadan and 2 days after a blast tore through a high school in predominantly Shiite Hazar area in western Kabul, killing at least 6. Zai Zandani, the spokesman of the provincial health authority, said 11 people have been killed and 32 wounded in the blast.
A 100-year-old man from the southern Brazilian city of Bros has entered the Guinness World Record book for working the longest in the same company, 84 years. Despite his extraordinary accomplishment, Walter Ortsman advised for those looking for a long and fulfilling professional life is surprisingly simple: do what you love and stay away from junk food. You have to like to work. I started to work with that willingness and fighting spirit, he said in an interview this week. You can't just do any job to say that you are working. That doesn't work. You're not going to be able to stand it. According to the local media, Othman studied on the factory floor of a company now known as Roundup, which produced fabrics. Soon after, he moved to administration, eventually becoming a sales manager. To keep sharp, he drank daily and assiduously watches his diet. I really avoid salt and sugar, he said. I avoid things that hurt your intestine. I avoid Coke and other sodas. I only consume things that are good for you, that really help your body to be strong forever.
If it's happening and you need to know about it, you'll get it all right here. EAC News brings you updates and breaking news in English across all of our platforms and channels. The EAC News app, YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and our website www.eacnews.asia. Join me and the rest of the EAC News team every day on your favorite channels. EAC News, Cambodia made clear.
Tyler Wright of Australia and Brazil Felipe Toledo won the Rip Curl Pro Bells Beach in Victoria, Australia on Sunday 17th of April, the fourth stop on the World Surf League 2022 Championship Tour. After the previous runner-up finishes at the event, it was the first win at the iconic Bells Beach for both surfers who adapted best to the move for the finals to a different beach nearby because of a strong offshore wind. In clean but dropping surf, two-time WSL champion Wright claimed her 15th championship tour in her defeat of Clarice Moore of the United States. Wright was the form surfer of the event, posting excellent scores throughout. In the men's final, Toledo came up against 2022 CT rookie Callum Robson of Australia, who was on an impressive run of form, but he was no match for the Brazilian, who takes the top spot on the world rankings ahead of next week Margaret River Pro, an event where he is defending champion.
You know, I cannot put into words just yet what this means. It's been a long 4 years. There's been multiple times where I've just wanted to give up, and it's just not worth putting in the effort to get back to this sort of form. And you know, I've worked so hard to be here, and I'm just so beyond grateful to have the support that I have had, and the love and the care as well. So yeah, it is more than a win. It's the only event that I've ever really wanted to win, and here I am, and I'm pretty over the moon, and I'm beyond stoked.
Dutchman Dylan van Baarle won the Paris-Roubaix Monument Classic on Sunday, April 17, to give the Ineos Grenadiers team their most prestigious victory in a one-day race.
Van Baarle, who was second in the Tour of Flanders 2 weeks ago, went solo 19 km from the finish line on the key cobbled sector to prevail a record average speed of 45.79 km per hour. Belgium's Wout van Aert, Jumbo-Visma, back to a competitive race after 2 weeks off due to COVID-19, took second place 1 minute 47 seconds behind after outsprinting Swiss Stefan Kurg in a Robax Vanderdrome. Favourite Mathieu van der Poel was never really in the mix and finished a disappointing ninth, more than 2 minutes behind the country art, first Dutch rider to win Paris-Roubaix, Nicky Trespeser in 2014. Ineos Grenadiers blew up the race with 210 km to go, splitting the bunch in crosswinds and leaving the likes of Van Aert and Van der Poel chasing. Van Baarle caught up with the leading trio of Slovenia's Maciej Mohek, Belgium's Jens Lampert and Tom Deverdick with 25 kilometres to go. He waited for this moment 6 kilometres further down the road to accelerate on the cobbled sector of Campoline de Pevel, and only Moharic and Lambert seemed to be able to follow. They soon dropped back with Lambert crashing out with 7 kilometres left following sight contact with a spectator. The slight contact with the spectator. Van Baarle shook his head in disbelief as he hit the wooden boards of the velodrome for the last 750 metres before coasting to victory. I could not believe it when I went into the velodrome. I looked on the other side and I see if there were other guys, but I was completely alone, Van Baarle. His face covered in a mix of sweat and dust said after the 257.2 kilometre effort.
Yeah, when the DS car came next to me with Sarvas, that...
The 126th Boston Marathon took place amid heavy security on Monday, 18th of April, as the race returned to its traditional April race date for the first time in 3 years, with 30,000 athletes participating, covering 26.2 miles from Hockinton to Boston.
Security is always of top concern for local authorities, with heightened measures put in place after the Boston Marathon bombing attacks of 2013. The world's oldest annually run marathon was cancelled in 2020 and delayed until October last year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Monday marked 50 years since the Boston Marathon officially began allowing women to compete in a race first held in 1897. Kenya's Olympic champion Perez Jepchirchir edged a thrilling sprint finish first for the women's, and fellow Kenyan Evans Chebet dominated a stellar field to claim the men's title. The bells of the Old South Church rang and a roar came up from the crowd along Boylston Street as he ran towards the finish line. At the beginning, I was not confident. I didn't know that I would come out as the winner, Chebet told reporters. The race started in Hopkinton in perfect conditions with temperatures hovering in the mid-50s degrees Fahrenheit as the world's oldest annual marathon returned to its traditional spring date for the first time in 3 years. The wheelchair races featured dominant performances from two of the sport's most reliable podium finishers. Manuela Schär of Switzerland defended her title in the women's race, seizing the early lead before breaking the tape in 1 hour, 41 minutes and 8 seconds. American Daniel Romanchuk pulled away from compatriot Aaron Pike by the 20-kilometer mark, crossing the finish line in 1 hour, 26 minutes and 58 seconds to pick up his second Boston title.
Portugal forward Cristiano Ronaldo and his partner Georgina Rodriguez, who announced in October last year they were expecting twins, said on Monday, 18th of April, one of the two babies has died.
It is with deep sadness we have to announce that our baby boy passed away, Ronaldo and Rodriguez said in a joint statement on social media. It is the greatest pain that any parent can feel. Only the birth of our baby girl gave us the strength to live this moment with some hope and happiness, they said. Asking for privacy during this difficult time, the couple thanked the daughter and nurses for their birth care and support. The 37-year-old Ronaldo, 5-time World Player of the Year, rejoined Manchester United last year after winning multiple trophies with Real Madrid and Juventus.
F1 driver Sergio Perez took his Red Bull car for a joyride from New York City to Miami to test the track layout for the inaugural Miami Grand Prix taking place on 8th of May.
Chico braved the city streets of New York, the swampy Everglades with the help of barefoot water skier Parks Bonifay, before finally arriving at the Miami International Auto Dome and visiting the Miami Dolphins Hard Rock Stadium. The Miami GP is just one stop away, with the F1 Roadshow in Imola for the Emilia-Romagna GP this weekend for the fourth race of the season. Ferrari's Charles Leclerc leads the drivers standing after 2 wins and a second-place finish, 34 points clear of Mercedes' George Russell, with Perez a further 7 points back in fourth, 3 behind third-place Carlos Sainz. Mercedes' Lewis Hamilton and Perez's teammate and defending champion Max Verstappen languish in 5th and 6th respectively, following indifferent starts to the season.
Tyson Fury held a workout in front of the media on Tuesday, 19th of April, but once again, Dillian Whyte was a no-show ahead of their world title fight.
Whyte had previously not attended a promotional press conference for the British pair's WBC World Championship fight after disagreements with the promoters about the size of his share of the purse. The undefeated Fury, 31 wins, 0 draws, 1 loss, who beat Deontay Wilder and become WBC champion, will face mandatory challenger Whyte after the deal to fight Ukraine WBA, WBO, IBF and IBO champion Aleksandr Usyk for the undisputed heavyweight title fell apart. Whyte has been waiting years for a shot at the world title, the WBC's top-ranked contender. After months of drawn-out negotiations, Fury's co-promoter Frank Warren won the purse to bid in January with an offer of $41 million, beating Whyte's promoter Eddie Hearn, who was the only other bidder. Fury is now set to receive 80% of the purse and Whyte the remaining 20%. The fight will take place at London's Wembley Stadium on the 23rd of April. The shirt worn by Diego Maradona when he scored the iconic Hand of God goal, it fetches millions of pounds when it was sold at auction next month. A bid for $4 million has already been received in an online auction, which started on Wednesday, 20th of April and will run to the 4th of May. London Sotheby's has rejected claims by the Argentines family that the shirt wasn't the one Maradona was wearing when he scored the famous goals when England in 1986 in the World Cup. Maradona's wore number 10 jersey in the quarter-final in Mexico, putting Argentina ahead by punching the ball into the net early in the second half, a goal that became known as the Hand of God. Just 4 minutes later, he dribbled from his own half score and sublined second the regularly tops polls as the greatest goal in the World Cup history. England's midfielder Steve Hodge got Maradona's jersey after the game and recently announced he was putting up for auction after 19 years of display at England's National Football Museum. However, the sale was complicated by claims from Maradona's family that the wrong shirt was going under the hammer. "It's not the shirt my dad wore in the second half," Delama Maradona said on Metro Radio in Argentina. "I know for sure that he doesn't have it, and I know who does. I don't want to say who has it because it's mad." But Braham Watcher, Sotheby's head of streetwear and modern collectibles, told Reuters the authenticity of the shirt has been verified using photo matching. "We undertook a process called photo matching, which is when you look at the shirt in really microscopic detail, even examining individual threads and groups of fabric and comparing it against photos of the game to the shirt that we have in our possession, and we were able to find conclusive photo matching through the firm outside the company and that we hired to do it," he said. Sotheby's also pointed to Maradona's words from his autobiography, Touched by God, where he talked about handing the shirt he was wearing to the end of the match to Hodge. The company also said the shirt had been in the National Football Museum for nearly 2 decades and there had never been a claim that it was not the Maradona who wore the scoring the goals. Since he died in a cardiac arrest in November 2020, Maradona's family has been involved in a series of scandals and court battles related to his legacy. The former Napoli and Boca Juniors striker, who was 60 when he died, is widely regarded as one of the greatest footballers of all time and is a hero to millions of people around the world, and particularly Argentina. Tennis players from Russia and Belarus will not be allowed to compete in this year's Wimbledon due to Moscow's invasion in Ukraine. The Grand Slam's organisers, All England Law Tennis Club, said on a statement on Wednesday.
Earlier this month, the AELTC said it was in talk with the British government on the participation of players from Russia and Belarus in the grass court Grand Slam. We recognize that this is hard on the individual affected, and it is with sadness that they will suffer for the action of the leader of the Russian regime. Ian Hewitt, chairman of the AELTC, said in a statement. Hewitt said the AELTC had carefully considered alternative measures that might be taken with the UK government guardians. But given the high-profile environment of the championship, of the importance of not allowing sport to be used to promote the Russian regime, and our broader concern for public and players, including family safety, we do not believe it is viable to proceed on any other basis, he said. The organizer had earlier planned to announce a decision in mid-May before the entry deadline for the June 27, July 10 event. A ban on Russian players prevent world number 2 Denis Medvedev and Andrei Rublev, ranked H, from competing in the men's draw, and Natasha Paliuchenkova is the 15th in the women's ranking. Belarus is a key stretching area for the invasion, which Russia called a special military operation. Women's world number 4 Arina Sabalenka and two-time Grand Slam champion Victoria Azarenka of Belarus will be affected. Tennis governing body had banned Russia and Belarus from international team competition following the invasion. Individual players are contractors and many do not reside in the country of birth. Russian Tennis Federation President Shamil Tapichev told the country's Sport Express newspaper earlier that there was nothing it could do. Wimbledon has not banned athletes from countries since after World War II, when players from Germany and Japan were not allowed to compete. Earlier, Ukrainian player Alina Svitolina and Marta Kostyuk issued statements calling for a blanket ban on Russian and Belarusian athletes from international events.
Legal challenge against Wimbledon ban is unlikely, says expert, and world number 1 Djokovic said decision to ban Russian and Belarusian players over Moscow's invasion of Ukraine is crazy.
Michael McCann, a professor of the University of New Hampshire, speaking after the Grand Slam tennis tournament, said on Wednesday, 20th April, that competitors from Russia and Belarus would not be granted entry to the 2022 competition. The move came in response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, but was condemned by the Kremlin, with a spokesman saying sport and politics should be kept separate. McCann said there were very limited legal options open to the likes of Daniil Medvedev and Arina Sabalenka, who won't be playing on the grass of SW19. He also added that the ATP and WTA were unlikely to seek redress, despite both governing bodies issuing statements saying they opposed the move. Djokovic, who grew up in war-torn Serbia, said the athletes had nothing to do with the ongoing conflict. I will always condemn war. I will never support war, being myself a child of war, Djokovic told reporters at the Serbia Open, an ATP 250 event in Belgrade. I know how much emotional trauma it leaves. In Serbia, we all know what happened in 1999. In the Balkans, we have had many wars in recent history. However, I cannot support the decision of Wimbledon. I think it is crazy. When politics interferes with sport, the result is not good. The All England Lawn Tennis Club's decision has been criticized by the ATP and WTA tours.
Upstart Combat Sports League Ice Wars will pit ice hockey enforcers against each other in a rink next month. But instead of scoring the puck, the goal is to knock your opponents out cold.
Make a look. And a couple right early on by Reed. He took a big right hit.
I'm calling the prize fighting on the ice because at the end of the day, there is no hockey being played, Ice Wars President AJ Galante told Reuters. There are no sticks, there are no pucks, and there are no nets. So yes, it's full hockey gear and it will be predominantly current hockey players, but it's prize fighting with a purse on the line. As a teenager, Gantel's father made him the general manager of the now defect Dunbury Trashers, a minor league team so violent and controversial that last year it became the subject of a Netflix documentary, Untold Crime and Penalties. He moved on to boxing and said that the wave of interest in innocent combat sports, everything from bare-knuckle boxing to pillow fighting, has grabbed headlines recently, leading to believe that it's time right to launch his passion project. A bout will consist of 2 one-minute rounds with a 30-second icebreaker in the event that the fighters split the rounds. The fighters will wear 4-ounce MMA gloves and cannot identically take their opponent's helmet off, but if it comes off as a result of a great punch, it's game on, said Grante. The concept dates back to the Battle of the Hockey Enforcers, an event which was held in the British Columbia in 2005 and served in the inspiration for Ice Wars. Ice warrior Daniel Ansbury said that they're eager to showcase his talent. As crazy it might sound, this is something that I've always had the back of my mind, Ansbury said. 6 months ago, I was saying to my bubby, that is too bad that there isn't sport where I can take an advantage of a unique skill that I have. I don't know if I'm master-fed or I'm just happened, but it wasn't much later that this ended up happening and I'm fired up. While no National Hockey League players are expected to participate, Ainsbury is prepared to stiff competition from players who compete in the Amateur Hockey League, as well as mid-tier leagues like the ECHL and NAHL. He said the length of bouts will guarantee non-stop action. An average hockey fight will probably be under 20 seconds, he said. So 1 minute is a long fight. It's not of action. There's going to be a lot of punches being thrown and there's going to be a lot of blood. It's going to be fun, man. Ice Wars will debut in an 8-man King of the Ring heavyweight tournament in Edmonton on Monday 21st.
You know what? How about this? No grudge. Just two guys that hug afterwards. A lot of mutual respect out there for two very, very tough guys. Yeah. Derek Parker, Jamie Linehouse.
This past Sunday, people around the world celebrated Easter in full swing after 2 years of COVID-19 pandemic. Christians around the world celebrate Easter with many participating in their own egg hunts, which are often made of chocolate or colorfully decorated shells. But each country also has its own little traditions.
Citizens in Horhausen, a small town in western Germany, created their own tradition by staging an egg-throwing contest and hurling brightly colored hard-boiled eggs into a meadow. Distance is a factor, but the egg must be unbroken to count as a valid throw, explained Mayor Thomas Schmidt, who welcomed the return of the event. The Horhausen egg-throwing competition has reached its 34th anniversary this year. The Easter Parade, which dates back to the 1870s, returned to New York City this year, with participants decked out in hats and costumes filling the streets of Manhattan to mark Easter Sunday. Traditionally, participants would dress in the latest fashion trends, and the event was noted for its ostentatious display of wealth and beauty, Newsweek reported. With about 300 attendees, the Cordão do Boitata has become one of the city's most traditional block parties, or blocos, with carnival revelers and samba musicians turning downtown into a massive Easter street party. Revelers donned colorful costumes depicting nuns, devils, and superheroes. It's a joy to hug people, to be in the streets. It feels like coming alive, said Nija Vivek, who participated in the block party. Locals also carried around a big snake figure representing the fantastic creature called Boitata. According to Brazilian mythology, the huge fire serpent attacks those who harm the Amazon. Although Brazil has become globally famous for its glitzy samba drum parades, traditional partying happens on the streets. Rio de Janeiro's government banned street carnivals this year, but also said that there won't be controls. Humans weren't the only ones to celebrate Easter. Lemurs, lions, and rhinos also celebrated by eating colorful eggs filled with fruit or meat, continuing a ritual that has been performed for more than 10 years at Chile's Buin Zoo, even despite the pandemic. Brightly colored eggs painted in animal-friendly paint were hidden around in the sand and grass, and bags filled with treats were fixed onto trees.
Dachshund owners gathered in Munich on Monday, 18th of April 2022 to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Munich Olympic Games, which included a dachshund named Waldi as its mascot.
Under clear blue skies, the Bavarian city have held Easter events on the former grounds of 1972 Munich Olympic Games. Dog owners had found memories of Waldi, which was the first official mascot in history of the Olympic Summer Games. Some of the dogs wore jumpers in colours resembling the design of Waldi. So we thought this is just the right outfit for today, and I just hope that it was not too hot because otherwise they would not been able to be dressed, said Dachshund owner Christine. The Dachshunds participated participated in an obstacle course and a fashion show and a walk around Olympic Lake. Back in 1972, a Dachshund mascot was given since they were a popular breed among citizens in Munich. The president of the German National Olympic Committee, who organised the 1972 Games, also owned a Dachshund. The official date of the 50th anniversary will be late August, with the Games having taken place in August the 26th to September 11th, 1972. The 1972 Olympic Games were overshadowed by a terrorist attack on the Israel Olympic teams by a Palestinian military group, which led to the death of 12 and 5 other predators during the second weeks of the game.
A Cambodian young man has spent 3 years developing recycled equipment used to create paper plates from sugarcane waste in an effort aimed at reducing the use of plastic products. Tang Sochiet, founder and managing director for MG Pacific Company Limited, said that he scavenged and hunt for old machines from the market to car repair garages to make improvements on. He hopes that his efforts would show consumers the benefit of recycling waste and significantly reducing pollution levels. Sochiet saw that Cambodia has increased its usage of styrofoam dishes, which take 700 to 800 years to dissolve. He hopes that people will understand the need to switch to something more sustainable. MG's paper plates are made by cleaning the sugarcane waste, pressing it in a machine with a pressure of up to 10 tons, heating it up to 200 degrees Celsius to kill germs, and waterproofing the product. Sochiet said that currently the hardest task he is tackling is how to lower the price of his product. Since the production is small scale, the cost of production is high. However, if consumers appreciate and value the product, they will be able to grow the production and make it cheaper.
First, we clean up the trash of sugarcane waste that is usually thrown away to rot or burn into pollution. Second, we create more local products and thus create more jobs.
Mok Janna, a seller of sugarcane juice, said that he collected sugarcane waste for Sochiet's company instead of throwing it away like he used to. He is happy to contribute to recycling for the benefit of the environment.
Can-printed solar panels power electric vehicles. Scientists in Australia will use printed plastic solar panels to charge a Tesla on the 9,400-mile journey beginning in September, hoping to get the public thinking about the steps to help the climate change.
Printed solar panels power electric vehicles. Scientists in Australia will use them to charge...
The Charge Around Australia project will power a Tesla electric car with 18 printed plastic solar panels, each 59 feet long. The plan is to roll them out beside the vehicle to soak up the sunlight when it needs to be charged. Paul Dastor, the inventor of these solar panels, discussed the benefit of the lightweight technology to generate electricity in remote areas. Printed solar is a lightweight limited PET plastic that can be made at a cost less than $8 a square metre. The panel has made a commercial printer originally using the printing wine labels. On the 84 Tesla journey, the team plans to visit about 70 schools to give students a taste of what the future may hold. Dastor hopes that if Elon Musk finds out about it, he would be very pleased with their inventive technology combined with Tesla's development to develop new solutions for the planet.
Less than $8 a square.
And finally, as the world celebrates Earth Day this 22nd of April, environmentalists and scientists around the world are working hard to combat the climate crisis. Here are some highlights. A collaboration between the Yale School of the Environment and two New York City-based not-for-profits, the Central Park Conservancy and Natural Areas Conservancy, the Central Park Climate Lab launched earlier this year to study climate change. Its mission is to use the park's green spaces as a field laboratory to study the on-the-ground impacts of shifting weather patterns and to use the information gathered to help parks nationwide implement strategies to make green spaces more resilient and mitigate the effects of climate change. Dr. Seto and her team plan to use satellite data and on-the-ground data to gain clues about seasonal patterns and how plant and animal life are responding. One of their data collection tools is a spectral radiometer, which measures light and can be used to identify vegetation. With the data acquired, the lab plans to create new strategies for implementing climate mitigation and adaptation protocols in urban parks across the U.S. The Intergovernmental Oceanographic Mission of UNESCO said that scientific assessments show that blue carbon ecosystems can sequester 2 to 4 times more carbon than terrestrial forests. That means they have a key role to play in tackling the climate emergency and achieving the goal of carbon neutrality. The term blue carbon refers to the carbon stored in coastal and marine ecosystems. Blue carbon ecosystems, mangroves, tidal and salt marshes, and seagrasses are highly productive coastal ecosystems that are particularly important for their capacity to store carbon within the plants and in the sediments below. With a sea area of 2 million square kilometers, rich marine ecosystems, and great biodiversities, Hainan hopes to use that to help achieve carbon neutrality. Rewild, a global nature restoration organization supported by Leonardo DiCaprio, has announced plans to protect and restore 100,000 hectares of land by 2030. The group is working with Yves Saint Laurent Beauty at where the company sources ingredients for its cosmetics. The sites identified for protection including a lake system in Sulawesi, a community garden in Morocco, as well as tree planting in Morocco, Madagascar, and Haiti, where primary forest covered 60% of the island in 1920, but now covers just 1%. The mountain range that we're helping to protect and restore the forest in has the highest concentration of species that, if lost, are irreplaceable. Dr. Robin Moore, Vice President of the Communications and Marketing at Rewild, told Roundups, "If you lose that mountain, you lose more species than you would anywhere else in the world," he said. The United Nations says the world must restore at least 1 billion hectares of degraded land, an area the size of China, in the next decade, while the WWF says about 2/3 of the world's animals, mammals, birds, fish, amphibians, and reptiles have vanished over the last 50 years. The project called Rewild Our World will see continued investment in rewilding projects in the Orica Valley in Morocco, 400,000 trees planted in Madagascar, and in Sulawesi, restoring more than 16,000 hectares of Lake Motano and restoring 30,000 hectares of forest. Scientists have successfully bred a threatened species of coral as part of a project that hopes to restore damaged reefs off of the coast of Florida that is under the threat by a relatively new disease, a coral rescue organization said on Thursday. Reefs in Florida and the Caribbean are facing the growing threat of destruction by the stony coral tissue loss disease that strips coral of its color and ultimately its life altogether. The Florida Coral Rescue Center has in recent weeks bred hundreds of new coral of species called rough cactus coral at a 2,000 square foot facility that houses a total of 18 Florida coral species that are threatened by the disease. Stony coral tissue loss disease was first observed near Miami in 2014 and by 2017 has spread to Florida's northernmost reef tract and later past Key West to the south. Species that fall victim to it have a mortality rate of 66 to 100%, making it deadlier than the better-known coral bleaching phenomenon that is typically caused by higher water temperatures associated with climate change. The Florida Coral Rescue Center is in part funded by the Disney Conservation Fund and Fish and Wildlife Foundation in Florida. Miscanthus exgigantus, or giant miscanthus, is a carbon-negative perennial grass that can grow up to 12 feet tall. Scientists believe this grass may be part of the answer to solving climate change problems and increasing precipitation. Researchers say giant miscanthus planted throughout midwestern parts of the United States not only reveals new insights into a natural solution to combat global warming, but also improves food crop production and bioenergy creation. Now let's have a look at the weather and what you can expect for the next few days. Thanks for watching the weekly Roundup here on EAC News Channel. More from the EAC News team in the daily Roundup on Monday night at 8 p.m. See you then.